Hi, I'm Jeanette with Kimberbell. Today we're talking about quilting borders. We are specifically going to look at the Cuties volume 2 July through December, and we are doing the outer border for the July Cutie. So I just want to refer you to your Cuties book. On page 5, it shows the anatomy of a cutie. You need to quilt your inner border, your outer border, and your corner blocks. So if you're looking at your instructions for sewing the cutie together, you'll notice that there's a heading called block by block quilting instructions that talks about making sure all of those are quilted before you start sewing your cutie together. So know what type of quilting you're going to be doing. You can just go to that summary page for your cutie. So the July summary page is on page 6. And in the quilting options box, it tells you every single quilting design that we used from the quilting bundle if you want to make it exactly like the sample that we made. So we are going to be quilting the 2-inch wide border with the argyle print. And I have my 6x10 hoop ready to go, loaded with light mesh cutaway stabilizer. So we're going to take this to the machine and we are going to go ahead and stitch the placement line for our batting. I have stitched the placement line for the batting. Now it's important to note here just a couple of things. I referred a lot to the Cuties book, but the other instructions that you need to use in tandem with the book would be the quilting instructions that are in the download that with the separately purchased quilting bundle. There are instructions in there that walk you step by step through the same process of quilting your borders. So we have stitched the batting placement line. We're going to go ahead and take a piece of project batting and just place it completely covering that line. Next, we're going to stitch the batting tack down line. Okay, we've stitched the batting tack down line and we're going to go ahead and trim around the batting. Okay, our next step to get ready is to stitch the border fabric placement line. We have stitched the border tack down line. We're going to take a couple pieces of our paper tape and just make it rolled up into just a roll. So it's sticky on all the sides. We're placing that just above and below. And then I have the border fabric, which I have trimmed just a couple inches longer so that we have just a little bit more room to play with, because we recommend just putting a ½ inch above. So you're sticking it to that tape. You're making sure that your border fabric should align exactly with those lines. And then just taping it at the bottom. So when we're developing this, we're trying to develop it so that you didn't have to take or unpick out a lot, because we know in your borders, you're hooping and rehooping them. So you can see my excess fabric is just going to hang off the bottom of the hoop. So I'm going to take this back to the machine and we're going to stitch the border fabric tack down line. It's just going to do 2 lines right down the side, and then we're ready to stitch the quilting. All right, you can see that we've stitched the tack down line for the fabric. This line you will not have to remove. We designed it so that it would be stitched in your seam allowance. So it's a nice basting stitch that holds it in place. And now we're ready to stitch the background quilting. Okay, we have finished stitching the background quilting stitch. We can go ahead and remove this from the hoop, and we're just gonna trim the excess stabilizer. We're not trimming any fabric or batting, just the stabilizer. We can even go ahead and remove the tape off of the bottom and the top if you want, and trim this stabilizer just a little bit closer. So make the next hooping a little bit easier. So then we're gonna start the process again. So we're gonna start again with the same process. So this is the second hooping. I've hooped the light mesh cutaway stabilizer, and I'm ready to stitch the batting placement line. So we're using the exact same embroidery file for the first hooping and the second, third, fourth hoopings. All the hoopings use the same file. So we're gonna place our batting, completely covering that line, and tape it in place. Then stitch the batting tack down line. And we're ready to trim the batting close to the stitch line. We are ready to stitch the fabric placement line. And again, we're placing rolled up pieces of tape at the top and the bottom. So we're going to take our border from part one. We've already quilted the first quilting, and we're just folding that in half so that we have the quilted fabric on top, so that we can align this top portion right here. So we're just aligning it so that it goes right there, and it's just going to flip up. So the quilted portion that we've already done from hoop one is going to be at the top of our hoop. We're just aligning those fabrics. You can see I'm just barely catching the bottom, and if my fabric were a little shorter, that would be fine too. I just place a piece of tape across the entire bottom, let it quilt the entire length of it, because I'm going to be trimming this to length after I'm done. So this is ready for the background for the border fabric tack down line. Okay, I've stitched my border fabric tack down line, and I am ready to take this to the machine and do the background quilting stitch. I have finished the quilting on my second hoop. Now, if you're doing with this a 5x7 hoop, you may need to repeat the second hoop process again to have the whole length of your border quilted. This border is all done. We've quilted the entire length of it. Need to repeat this process 4 times so that I have all 4 of my outer borders quilted. And then once I have my inner border, my outer border, and my corner blocks quilted, you're ready to go to page 44 in the Cuties instruction book to sew your cutie together. There's also an excellent resource guide provided for you in the instruction folder on your CD that is the Kimberbell resource guide that will give additional tips and tricks for binding your cutie and adding the back. Happy stitching!